What up? It's your boy, the Incredible Man. Yes, I am back at it again, and this is New Amsterdam Season 2, Episode 14, discussion / review, man. Let's get into it. So yeah, man, this episode was good. It wasn't as good as last week's episode. I'm not really trying to compare the two, but last week's episode was so much more heavy, impactful, and emotional. This episode, especially some of the situations that took place this episode, were grounded more in the realism aspect, and it kind of had you thinking, like, you know what? That is true. That's true. That's real. And New Amsterdam does a great job of making that pretty much the case in every episode. But this episode, it really shined to me, and I was like, okay, yeah, man, wow, that is really, really real. But that is that aspect. Now, the moment of this episode that made me super happy was we got Todd back. Todd is back on New Amsterdam. Even if it was just for this episode, it was great to see Todd back and just be in the presence of Max, and him and Max having their whole little back and forth and jokes coming in and the real aspects coming through and the seriousness. It was just so great to see Todd and Max be kind of butt heads again. So it was good. I really enjoyed it. And I love Todd. We all love Todd. So let's be real. It was just great to see Todd again. So this episode started off with Max and I can't think of old girl's name to save my life. Bobby's mom. And they were in the park talking and sharing tips of how to be a better parent and everything. And she gave Max something about the 6 S's or something, and he used that on Luna to give her a better night's sleep and stuff. So they were just sharing stuff about being parents. And then she had these tickets. She got a phone call and had some tickets brought up. And her and Max decided to go out on a semi-date type thing. And at the end of the episode, we see them gathering up for their date. And, well, you can't really call it a date. It's just like a gathering of two people. And they both had regrets. Because at the end of this episode, we find out that she lost her husband. He was a musician, and he killed himself. So it's still hard for her to move on. And we all know that Max is dealing with losing Georgia. Now, I feel sad for old girl. I really do. For your spouse or lover to kill themselves, that is a horrendous thing. But I don't need you interfering with Max's life right now. I don't need you trying to have a good time with Max right now. I'm sorry that you're going through some stuff and you need to sit on the sideline and deal with all that. But I don't need you coming in here interjecting what I want in my life, which is Max and Sharp. I don't need you in here kind of trying to bust this bubble that I concocted with Max and Sharp in there, okay? They have their moments. They even had a little tiff this episode. But I don't need you coming in here with all your prettiness and everything else and your sad stories and conflicting what's going on with Max and Sharp, because I need that to happen, like, pronto. I can wait. It don't have to be pronto. I can wait, but I just need it to happen. And I don't need you in here sewing your little deceits and prettiness and smiling at Max's face trying to have a relationship with him. I know that neither isn't really in a place for that to happen, but I'm just saying. I'm just stating facts. So then this episode, man, we have all that going on, and then we have Max and Todd trying to figure out they're over budget, basically. So they have to cut something to make payroll this week just to pay every member of the staff. And Todd was trying to give Max all these ideas, and Max really wasn't hearing it. So Todd brought up a big ticket item, which was just one department to cut and have that department gone, and then that could make payroll and everything else. And that particular department was the prenatal care for undocumented mothers. Max wasn't on board with that, so he decided to spend the rest of this episode trying to cut little bitty, itty bitty pieces out of each department to make budget and make payroll. And the sad thing is, because along with that, we got to see Reynolds being shipped off to Mexico to do a bunch of these pacemaker surgeries. And he got to see a nice facility and everything, and it was a paid expenses trip for him and the patients. But the funny thing is, it took Reynolds going to Mexico out of the country to kind of bend the rules, because the lady told him that, like, they strictly handled heart problems. So that while he was operating on a patient, one of somebody's liver messed up, I think, and they had to try to figure out how to reroute the blood flow through her liver or something so she could stay alive. And it took Reynolds being out of the country to bend the rules a little bit, and he still was on the kick of telling Max that, I'm leaving for San Francisco, and I'm hoping that he kind of changes his mind. But it's hard for that now, because at the end of this episode we also found out that the lady doctor that he was telling that to down in Mexico called Max and told him that she would like to be offered for the position of head of cardiology now that the position is open. And he didn't know that the position was open. He knew that Reynolds wanted to talk to him because Reynolds kept saying that this whole episode, but Max just kept shunning it off. He just never really paid attention because he was trying to focus on so much other stuff. Boy, oh boy. So we have Reynolds leaving for good as of right now because he loves his fiance, and Max didn't know about it. Then he gets the call from the lady. Man, there's so much going on. But that wraps up that little part. But I like how everything kind of tied into Max trying to cut stuff from each department. Then we come in contact with Sharp and Icky, which their patient was the same patient this episode. And it was this kid named Cephas, where he ended up building benign tumors in his body because he didn't really know how to react, or his body couldn't really form, his mind couldn't really form what was happening to him, which was racism. And that's where one of the realism aspects came in for me in this episode, is because this kid can formulate that, but it's so true because, everything that was happening to him, he was like, they always say I speak English so good, and how I got in here just because of diversity. There's so many aspects that was like, well, why? All of this could be true. But it's wrong for people to do so, but it's just so good because that was so real in that aspect with Cephas. And I just felt like, man, it was so hard for this dude. And Iggy was trying to change like the whole world to recognize that racism affects people in a mental capacity in a hurtful way within their body. And he was trying to register it as an actual thing they can claim on insurance and everything. But Sharp and the insurance lady told him, don't worry about saving the world. Save your patient. And that was so good because they're going to help Cephas now because, he was taking all of this stuff and he was dealing with it internally, and he never really just fully recognized it. That's where the realism aspect kicked in for me, man. It was so heavy. It was so heavy. Then we have Dr. Kapoor also. His particular moments in this episode were fun, with him in the iPad solving pretty much every case that he came in contact with today. The iPad knew the diagnosis, and it started holding a whole conversation with the lady in Hungarian. So it was just fun, and he was against it. And Max was like, well, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. And then the lady told him that, we're paying $166,000 to have this take place in your hospital. Well, VJ, I'm going to need you to kind of take this iPad on your rounds and just do all this stuff with it. So at that moment, he was looking for money. But at the same time, the iPad helped in the beginning. But then we came in contact with this other case, which was this Jewish mother. And that's where we also kind of played in on Bloom's role this episode, because we see that she's kind of having a confrontation with this lady that's in the hallway, and she's talking all kinds of rude to this lady. And I knew from jump when I seen it that was her mother. But we didn't find that out to the end of the episode. But at the same time, it was nice because the girl that was there with her mother that was sick, that was VJ and Bloom's patient, I felt like that was going to be the whole part that was going to connect Bloom to her mother too. She was going to see how this girl acted with her mother, and she was like, well, I don't want to be on the same terms with my mother, but I will hear her out and see what she has to say. But the case with that was weird. They're Jewish, and they do kosher, and they practice the Sabbath and everything. I'm not going to dive into too much because I don't know anything about Jewish culture. But what the funny thing is they were like, well, have you eaten anything? No, we keep everything kosher. And the girl, she breaks a little bit of the rules, not intentionally or anything, but it's just, she's worried about her sports team. And, sorry, the monitor acted weird. Worry about the Mets and everything. And she had a hot dog from a street vendor. And, it wasn't kosher. And she ate it. And she kissed her mother. And it gave her mother a tapeworm. She had a tapeworm, and her kissing her mother gave her some kind of infection or whatever. Are you serious? This is crazy. I've never wanted to be a doctor. That was never for me or anything like that. But I will admit, watching New Amsterdam, especially, I can't talk tonight, especially in this episode, just seeing them solve these particular cases and everything and the weird stuff that took place. Wow, man, like doctors are, wow, that's crazy. But to wrap up the whole episode, we also have Max finally making the decision to cut the prenatal care for undocumented mothers. And he signed off on it, and Todd took it, he was going to take it to the people. And then we find out that Todd threw it away because Max came up with an idea, thanks to Reynolds, to outsource the doctors to other hospitals, because they have like a bunch of special departments, like a bunch of specialist doctors, and they're going to outsource those doctors to other hospitals that don't have those doctors, that could use them in a special capacity for a patient that might not be able to travel. That was good. And at the end of the episode, Todd told Max, well, I threw out the pamphlet or whatever, like the big binder, because I knew that you were going to come up with an idea. Come on, man. Todd for the win and Max for the win. But I really enjoyed this episode, and I kind of tried to do this discussion review a little different because I wanted to just touch on the facts that it felt so real with them having to make budget and payroll and decide to cut something. Because as people, as regular people, people that go to the hospital that's not doctors or surgeons or anything like that, or nurses, we don't really see the aspect of like the financial part of it. We just know that, a hospital is supposed to be there to take care of people and help people when in need. But at the same time, it takes money to buy all the medical supplies, the bedding, the lights, the electricity, and everything that's going on inside a hospital, paying these doctors that went to school for all these years. And yeah, it's not about the money for most doctors. But at the same time, it takes money to run this place, pay these doctors, because they have to put in the time and the effort to learn how to be a doctor and everything. So there's a lot that goes into this, but as regular people, sometimes we tend to skip out on that fact and forget that. And I love the fact that they showcase that this episode, that, it's still at the end of the day a business, but their foundation is helping and healing people. And I love that, man. This is your boy, Dick Incredible. Don't forget to smash that like button. You can't smash it anymore. Comment down below and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them, and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. And remember, New Amsterdam for the win, and Todd is back, baby. Well, not officially, but he was back this episode. Peace out, man.